Hello, my name is William, and welcome to Dragon X Dominion, a realm where dragon legends are forged in fire, honor, and forgotten worlds. I will be your narrator and guide through these epic lands. If you crave powerful stories, legendary dragons, and wars that echo through eternity, then you found your home, ladies and gentlemen. So subscribe, and claim your place among these legends.
The overhead lights in the interrogation room made everything look pale and lifeless. Daniel Reed sat with his hands folded on the metal table, trying to explain for the third time what he had seen in Cargo Bay 7. The council representatives looked at him with expressions that ranged from bored to irritated. "Let me understand this correctly," Director Amara Wells said, tapping her fingers on her tablet. "You claim that Senator Brightwood, Ambassador Korvax, and Trade Minister Fallen were all present in a restricted cargo area at 2 in the morning, exchanging cases of what you believe were illegal weapons." Daniel nodded. "Yes, I was doing routine maintenance on the environmental controls. They did not know I was there. I heard everything." "And yet our security footage from that night shows nothing," Amara said. "Because someone erased it," Daniel insisted. "I know what I saw." The Kaldari representative, a being with 4 arms and silver skin, made a dismissive gesture. "You are a maintenance worker. You fix air filters and repair pipes. Why should we believe you over 3 distinguished officials with decades of service?" Daniel felt his face grow hot. "Because I am telling the truth." "Truth requires evidence," Amara said, standing up. "Without proof, this is just a waste of our time. You are dismissed, Mr. Reed. And I would suggest you stop making these accusations before someone files a defamation complaint against you." Daniel left the council building feeling hollow. Station Harmony stretched out around him, a massive wheel spinning in space, home to 30,000 beings from 100 different worlds. He had lived here for 6 years, fixing things that broke, keeping the air clean and the water flowing. Nobody important ever noticed him, until now when he wished they would. His apartment was in the lower residential section, where rent was cheap and the walls were thin. Daniel unlocked his door and stepped inside, tossing his work bag onto the couch. He went to the small kitchen area and opened the cooling unit, looking for something to eat. His appetite had disappeared 3 days ago, right around the time he had witnessed something that could get him killed. A soft scratching sound came from the window. Daniel turned. His apartment was on the inner ring of the station, facing the central garden atrium. There should not be anything at his window except the view of artificial trees and recycled air. The scratching came again. He walked over and looked out. 3 small creatures clung to the outside of the glass, their claws gripping the window frame. They were the size of house cats, with scales that shimmered in shades of reddish copper, silvery gray, and deep green. Leathery wings folded against their backs. Their eyes glowed with intelligence as they stared at him. Dragons, baby dragons. Daniel recognized them immediately. 4 months ago, he had been repairing a ventilation panel near the cargo docks when he heard strange sounds coming from inside a shipping crate. He had opened it, thinking maybe some animal was trapped. Instead, he found these 3 tiny dragons, cramped in a container barely big enough for one of them, with no food or water. He had reported it to station security, who raided the ship and arrested the smugglers. He had not seen the dragons since that day. Now they were at his window, looking at him with what seemed like urgency. Daniel opened the window. The 3 dragons immediately flew inside, landing on his couch, his table, and his kitchen counter. They made soft, chirping sounds, turning their heads to watch him from different angles. "What are you doing here?" Daniel asked. "You are supposed to be in the wildlife sanctuary on the habitat level." The copper-scaled one flapped its wings and made a low rumbling sound. The silver one jumped down from the table and walked over to the door, sniffing at the gap underneath. The green one, slightly larger than the others, positioned itself between Daniel and the window, as if standing guard. "I do not understand," Daniel said. "Did you escape?" The copper dragon shook its head, actually shook its head like it understood him. Daniel sat down slowly. "Can you understand what I am saying?" All three dragons bobbed their heads up and down. A chill ran through Daniel. These were not simple animals. They were intelligent, maybe as intelligent as he was. "Did you come here because of what I reported to the council?" Daniel asked. "About what I saw." The green dragon made a sharp hissing sound and moved closer to the door. The silver one ran to the window and looked out, its body tense. "You think I am in danger?" Daniel said quietly. The copper dragon walked over to him and placed one small clawed foot on his knee. Its eyes met his, and Daniel felt something he could not quite explain. A sense of connection, of recognition. These dragons remembered that he had saved them. Now they wanted to return the favor. "Okay," Daniel said. "You can stay tonight, but tomorrow I need to figure out what to do with you." The dragons settled into various spots around his apartment. The copper one curled up on the back of his couch. The silver one found a spot on top of his bookshelf. The green one lay down directly in front of the door. Daniel tried to sleep that night, but his mind would not quiet down. He kept thinking about the weapons he had seen, about the officials who would do anything to keep their secret, about the fact that nobody believed him. At 3 in the morning, he heard a sound at his door. Not a knock, something else, something metallic like someone working on the lock. Daniel sat up in bed, his heart pounding. The green dragon was already on its feet, wings spread, facing the door. The copper and silver ones flew to positions on either side of the entrance. The lock clicked, the door started to open. A hand reached through the gap, holding some kind of electronic device. The copper dragon took a deep breath and exhaled a thin jet of flame directly at the intruding hand. A man's voice screamed in pain. The hand jerked back. Heavy footsteps ran down the corridor outside. Daniel stood frozen, staring at the 3 small dragons who had just saved his life. The green one looked back at him and made a soft, reassuring sound. Nobody believed Daniel about what he had witnessed. But these 3 dragons believed him. And that was enough. Station security arrived 20 minutes after Daniel called them. 2 officers stood in his doorway, looking at the scorch mark on the door frame with obvious skepticism. "So you are saying a tiny dragon burned an intruder?" Officer Hendricks said flatly. He was a large human with gray hair and an expression that suggested he had heard every lie in the universe. "Yes," Daniel said. "Look at the mark, that is proof." "Proof that something burned your door," Hendricks replied. "Could have been you, could have been a cooking accident." "At 3 in the morning, on my front door." The other officer, a Zentari female named Kess, crouched down to examine the 3 dragons sitting on Daniel's couch. "These are draconids, juveniles. How did you get them?" "They came to me," Daniel said. "I saved them from smugglers 4 months ago. Now they are trying to protect me." Kess stood up. "Draconids are extremely rare. Adults are the size of shuttlecraft and considered Class 5 dangerous species. These should not be in private residence." "Then put me under protection," Daniel said. "Someone tried to break in. Someone wants to hurt me because of what I witnessed." Hendricks sighed. "Mr. Reed, we have been through this. The council investigated your claims. No evidence was found. You cannot keep calling us every time you hear a noise in the hallway." "This was not a noise. Someone tried to open my door." "With no witnesses except you and 3 animals." Hendricks turned to leave. "Get rid of the dragons. If we get another call about them, we will confiscate them and you will face charges for illegal possession of dangerous wildlife." The officers left. Daniel closed his damaged door and looked at the 3 dragons. They stared back at him with glowing eyes. "I guess it is just us," Daniel said. The green dragon made a low rumbling sound that seemed almost sympathetic. Over the next 2 days, the dragons refused to leave. Daniel brought them food from the commissary, stealing extra portions of meat and fish. He quickly discovered that all 3 had different preferences. The copper one liked spicy foods. The silver one preferred anything crunchy. The green one ate whatever was offered without complaint. They also had distinct personalities. The copper dragon was cautious, always checking spaces before Daniel entered them. The silver dragon was curious, investigating every object in the apartment, especially his tools and repair equipment. The green dragon was protective, positioning herself between Daniel and the door, the windows, any possible entry point. Daniel started calling them by color names: copper, silver, and jade. On the third day, a botanist from the upper research levels knocked on his door. Her name was Freya, and she had pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on her face. "I have seen you in the gardens with the small draconids," she said without preamble. "Do you know what you have?" "Trouble, apparently," Daniel said. Freya smiled. "You have 3 bonded companions. Draconids choose who they protect. Once they decide they will never leave, you saved them, yes. I opened a crate, that is all." "That is everything to them." Freya stepped inside, and the dragons immediately surrounded her, sniffing and examining. She laughed. "They are checking if I am a threat, smart little ones, may I?" Daniel nodded. Freya knelt down and let the dragons approach her. She spoke in a language Daniel did not recognize, soft, clicking sounds mixed with humming. The dragons responded with their own chirps and rumbles. "What did you say?" Daniel asked. "I told them I mean no harm to their chosen one." Freya stood. "I studied draconid culture for my doctoral research. Adult draconids form telepathic bonds with those they protect. These juveniles are too young for that yet, but they are trying. You have felt it, yes. Small warnings, feelings that are not quite your own." Daniel thought about the chill he had felt before the break-in attempt, the certainty that danger was coming. Maybe. It will grow stronger as they mature. But Mr. Reed, you should know that draconids grow very quickly when they feel safe. In 1 year, they could be the size of ground vehicles. In 5 years, they will be larger than most spacecraft. "I do not have room for that," Daniel said. "Then you must decide soon if you truly want this bond." Freya moved toward the door. "But also know this: draconids never forget a debt, and they never abandon their chosen family. Whatever danger you are facing, they will face it with you until the end." After Freya left, Daniel sat on his couch with 3 dragons arranged around him. He thought about the weapons deal he had witnessed, about the powerful people who wanted him silenced, about the fact that nobody would help him. "I am just a maintenance worker," he told the dragons. "I fix pipes and air filters. I am not anyone important." Jade, the green dragon, climbed onto his lap and looked up at him. Her eyes seemed to say that importance was not measured by job titles. That night, Daniel went to work as usual. The dragons came with him, hiding in his work bag. He tried to protest, but they simply would not stay behind. Copper and silver could fit easily. Jade squeezed herself in, determined not to be left out. During his shift, Daniel accessed the maintenance logs from the night of the weapons deal. Everything seemed normal at first. Then he noticed something strange. The environmental system had recorded a temperature spike in Cargo Bay 7 at exactly 2:13 in the morning, the same time he had witnessed the exchange. He dug deeper, following the data trail. The security footage might have been erased, but the environmental sensors kept their own records. Temperature changes, air pressure fluctuations, energy readings, all of it was still there, buried in files that nobody thought to check. Daniel began copying the data to a portable drive when Silver poked her head out of his bag and made an urgent chittering sound. Copper and Jade emerged as well, their bodies tense. Footsteps echoed down the maintenance corridor. Heavy boots, multiple people, moving with purpose. Daniel grabbed his bag and ran. The dragons flew ahead of him, showing him paths through the service tunnels that he had forgotten existed. They moved through the station's hidden infrastructure, the spaces between walls where cables ran and pipes connected. Behind him, the footsteps followed. There, a voice shouted, "Maintenance worker, do not let him escape." Daniel pushed through a narrow access panel and found himself in a vertical shaft. Ladder rungs descended into darkness. He climbed down as fast as he could, the dragons flying beside him. He reached a lower level he barely recognized. The old construction level, sealed off when the station completed its final expansion. The dragons led him through abandoned corridors until they reached a forgotten observation deck. Here in the darkness, surrounded by 3 small dragons who had chosen him, Daniel finally understood what he had to do. The powerful people who wanted him dead had made one mistake. They thought he was alone, but he was not alone anymore. The abandoned observation deck had become Daniel's hiding place. Through the dusty windows, he could see the stars beyond the station's hull, points of light in endless darkness. The dragons had made a nest in the corner using old maintenance tarps and discarded insulation foam. They took turns sleeping while one always stayed awake, watching. Daniel set up his portable workstation and began analyzing the environmental data he had stolen. The numbers told a story that security footage could not. Energy spikes consistent with weapons charging. Air pressure changes from cargo doors opening and closing. Temperature variations from engine exhaust. All of it matched exactly what he had witnessed. But he needed more. He needed something undeniable. Silver landed on his shoulder and made a soft trilling sound. She dropped something small onto his keyboard. Daniel picked it up, an identification badge, the name. Read Chief Engineer Walters, with a security clearance level far above Daniel's own. "Where did you find this?" Daniel asked. Silver chirped and flew to a pile of objects in the corner that Daniel had not noticed before. He walked over and felt his breath catch. The dragons had been collecting things. Dozens of items, torn pieces of clothing, more ID badges, a broken data pad, recording chips, even a small piece of what looked like weapons casing. "You have been gathering evidence," Daniel whispered. Jade walked over and nudged a recording chip toward him with her snout. Daniel picked it up and plugged it into his workstation. Static hissed through his speakers, then voices emerged. "The shipment arrives Tuesday. Make sure the cargo bay is clear." Daniel recognized that voice, Senator Brightwood. "What about the maintenance schedules?" Another voice, Ambassador Korvax. "Handled. Nobody will be in that section." "Except somebody was," Trade Minister Fallen. "We have a problem. A worker saw us." "Then handle it." The recording ended. Daniel sat back, his hands shaking. The dragons had witnessed the same crime he had. While he slept, while he worked, they had been exploring the station, collecting proof in their own way. They could not speak to tell anyone what they saw, but they could bring him the pieces. Now he had everything: environmental data, physical evidence, voice recordings. He could expose the entire conspiracy. Daniel spent the next hour assembling the evidence into a comprehensive file. He encrypted it and prepared to send it to every news outlet, every oversight committee, every authority he could think of. The conspirators had power, but they could not suppress the truth if it went everywhere at once. His finger hovered over the send button. Copper suddenly hissed, a sound of pure alarm. Silver and Jade immediately flanked Daniel, their wings spread in defensive positions. The door to the observation deck exploded inward. 6 armed men rushed in, wearing combat gear and carrying weapons that glowed with illegal modifications. Mercenaries, the kind of people who killed for money and never asked questions. "Daniel Reed," the leader said, his voice filtered through a helmet. "You have been very difficult to find." Daniel stood slowly, his hands raised. The 3 dragons positioned themselves between him and the mercenaries, looking absurdly small against armed humans. "Last chance," the leader said. "Delete the files, forget what you saw, walk away." "Or what?" Daniel asked, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. "Or we make you disappear, along with your little pets." The moment stretched. Daniel looked at the 3 dragons who had chosen to protect him, who had gathered evidence when nobody else would help, who refused to abandon him even when facing armed killers. "No," Daniel said, "I am not deleting anything." The leader raised his weapon. "Your funeral." Copper moved first. She launched herself at the leader's face, breathing fire directly at his helmet's visor. The man screamed and stumbled backward, pawing at the melting plastic. Silver darted low, using her tail to trip the mercenary on the right. As he fell, she raked her claws across his weapon hand, forcing him to drop his gun. Jade went for the throat of the mercenary on the left, her teeth finding the gap between his helmet and body armor. He tried to grab her, but she was too fast, too small, too fierce. Daniel ran. He grabbed his workstation and sprinted for the door. The dragons covered his escape, attacking with coordinated precision that seemed impossible for creatures so young. They used the environment, knocking over old equipment to create obstacles. They used their size, slipping through gaps where humans could not follow. They used their fire not to kill, but to blind and disorient. Daniel raced through the abandoned corridors with the sounds of fighting behind him. The dragons caught up to him one by one, rejoining him as they led him through the hidden paths of the station. Silver flew ahead, scouting. Jade stayed at his back, watching for pursuit. Copper flew beside him, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. They reached a maintenance junction where several tunnels intersected. Silver made an urgent sound and banked left. Daniel followed without question, his trust in the dragons now absolute. The tunnels led upward, toward the inhabited sections of the station. Daniel emerged in a service corridor near the commercial district. People walked past, unaware of what was happening in the forgotten levels below. He needed somewhere public, somewhere the mercenaries could not attack without witnesses. The dragons led him to the central plaza, a huge open space surrounded by shops and restaurants. Daniel found a public access terminal and plugged in his workstation. His hands moved quickly across the interface. He uploaded the evidence to 12 different news organizations. He sent copies to the Galactic Union Oversight Committee. He posted it on public forums. He transmitted it to law enforcement agencies across 3 sectors. Within minutes, the truth was everywhere. Daniel stepped back from the terminal and sank down against the wall, exhausted. The 3 dragons settled around him, forming a protective circle. People stared at them, but Daniel did not care anymore. He had done it. The conspiracy was exposed. A woman approached cautiously. It was Freya, the botanist. "Daniel, are you all right?" "They tried to kill me," Daniel said. "The dragons saved me." Freya knelt down beside him. "I saw your transmission. It is already spreading across the network. People are talking about it." "Will anyone believe it?" "With that much evidence, they have no choice." Daniel looked at Copper, Silver, and Jade. They had grown slightly larger, he realized, not much but noticeable. Their scales seemed brighter, their eyes more alert. "They are maturing faster because they feel accomplished," Freya explained. "They protected their chosen one. That is a Draconid's highest purpose." Station security arrived, but this time they were not dismissive. An entire squad surrounded the plaza, weapons drawn. Daniel tensed, but the security chief held up a hand. "Mr. Reed, you are to come with us immediately, for your own protection." "Why should I trust you?" Daniel asked. "Because in the last 15 minutes, we have arrested Senator Brightwood, Ambassador Korvax, and Trade Minister Fallen. Your evidence has been verified. You were right about everything." Daniel stood slowly, the dragons moving with him, "And the mercenaries who attacked me. We are hunting them now. You will be placed in protective custody until they are caught." As security escorted Daniel through the station, people stopped to watch. Word had spread. The maintenance worker nobody believed had exposed corruption at the highest levels, and he had done it with help from 3 small dragons who refused to let him face danger alone. The conspirators had made one critical mistake. They assumed Daniel was powerless because he was alone. But found family can be stronger than blood. The safe house was a converted storage unit in the industrial section of the station. Daniel sat on a basic cot while Copper, Silver, and Jade explored their new temporary home. Security had promised protection, but Daniel noticed only 2 guards posted outside. not exactly a show of force. Director Amara Wells arrived an hour later, her expression tight with controlled anger. She was not angry at Daniel, he realized. She was angry at herself. "I owe you an apology," she said without sitting. "I dismissed your claims. I should have investigated more thoroughly." "You thought I was nobody," Daniel said. "A maintenance worker making up stories." "I thought you were mistaken, not the same thing." Amara finally sat down across from him. "The evidence you gathered is comprehensive. We have enough to prosecute all three officials and dismantle their entire network. But there is a problem." "Of course there is." "Several members of station security were on their payroll. We have arrested most of them, but some escaped. And the mercenaries who attacked you are still at large. Until we catch all of them, you are in danger." Jade walked over and placed her front claws on Amara's knee, staring up at her with glowing eyes. The director looked down at the dragon with surprise. "She is reading you," Daniel explained, "trying to figure out if you are a threat. Draconids can sense intent." "Apparently." Jade made a soft, rumbling sound and returned to Daniel's side. Whatever she had sensed in Amara must have been acceptable. "How long do I have to stay here?" Daniel asked. "Days, maybe weeks. We are still processing all the evidence you provided and following the trails. This conspiracy goes deeper than we initially thought." After Amara left, Daniel tried to settle in. The dragons were restless, pacing the small room, making anxious sounds. They did not like being caged any more than he did. That night, the power went out. Emergency lights kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red. The two guards outside shouted, then went silent. Daniel stood up slowly. The dragons were already in defensive positions, facing the door. Footsteps approached, multiple sets, moving quietly but not silently. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. 5 figures in tactical gear rushed in, weapons raised. But they hesitated when they saw the 3 dragons. That hesitation was everything. Copper breathed a stream of fire that ignited one attacker's equipment harness. Silver launched herself at another, using her momentum to drive her claws into the gaps in his armor. Jade went straight for the leader, her teeth finding the hand holding the weapon. Daniel did not run this time. He grabbed a metal chair and swung it at the nearest attacker, putting all his weight behind it. The impact sent the man stumbling into the wall. The fight was chaos. The room was small, which worked against the attackers. They could not use their weapons without risking hitting each other. The dragons used this, staying close, making themselves impossible targets. Daniel fought with desperate strength he did not know he possessed. Years of manual labor had made him stronger than he looked. He blocked, dodged, struck back when he saw openings. Copper set 2 more attackers on fire, forcing them to retreat into the hallway. Silver tripped another, and when he fell, Jade was there, holding him down with surprising strength for her size. The last attacker tried to grab Daniel. Copper flew directly at his face, claws extended. The man threw his arms up to protect himself, and Daniel kicked him hard in the knee. He went down with a scream. It was over in less than a minute. 5 trained mercenaries, defeated by 1 maintenance worker, and 3 dragons no bigger than large dogs. Station security arrived moments later, weapons drawn. They stopped in shock at the scene. 5 attackers unconscious or groaning in pain. Daniel standing in the middle, breathing hard. 3 small dragons positioned protectively around him. "They came through the door," Daniel said. "The dragons and I fought them off." The new security chief, a Vorlian named Commander Trace, surveyed the damage with his 3 eyes. "I am beginning to understand why draconids are classified as dangerous." "Only to people who deserve it," Daniel replied. They moved Daniel to a new location, then another, then a third. Each time the compromised security officers found him, each time the mercenaries attacked, and each time the dragons protected him. By the 4th attack, the dragons had grown noticeably larger. Copper was now the size of a large dog. Silver had developed razor-sharp spines along her tail. Jade's scales had hardened into natural armor plating. They were adapting, growing stronger in response to the threats. After the fourth failed assassination attempt, Commander Trace changed tactics. Instead of hiding Daniel, he moved him to the most public place on the station, the main administrative building, right in the center of the governmental district. If they want to kill you here, they will have to do it in front of thousands of witnesses, Trace explained. Even corrupt officials cannot suppress that. Daniel was given an office on the third floor. The dragons claimed the space immediately, arranging furniture to create defensive positions. They had learned from each attack, developing tactics that made them far more effective than their size suggested. Freya visited him there, bringing food for the dragons and news from outside. "You are famous now," she said. "People across the galaxy are talking about the maintenance worker who exposed corruption with help from 3 rescued dragons. News crews want interviews. Politicians want to meet you. You have become a symbol." "I just wanted people to believe me," Daniel said. "They believe you now. More importantly, they believe in you." Freya fed a piece of dried meat to Silver, who had developed a particular fondness for the botanist. The Draconid homeworld sent a message. Their elders want to know more about the human who bonded with 3 of their young. "Am I in trouble?" "The opposite, they are impressed. Draconids rarely bond with other species. When they do, it is considered sacred. You have been invited to visit their world when this is over." That evening, Daniel stood at his office window, looking out over the station. Copper sat on his desk, now too large to fit in his work bag. Silver perched on a filing cabinet, her tail wrapped around it for balance. Jade lay by the door, her head resting on her claws but her eyes alert. They had all grown so much in such a short time, not just physically. Their coordination had improved. Their intelligence was obvious now, finding solutions to problems that surprised even Daniel. Their bond with him had deepened until he could sometimes sense their emotions clearly, and they seemed to understand his thoughts. A knock at the door made Jade rise to her feet instantly. Daniel checked the security monitor. Commander Trace stood outside with someone Daniel did not recognize, a tall woman with copper skin and elaborate tattoos. Daniel opened the door. Jade positioned herself between him and the strangers, a low rumble in her throat. "Mr. Reed," Trace said, "this is Ambassador Nira from the Draconid homeworld. She wanted to meet you." The ambassador looked at the 3 dragons and smiled. She spoke in the clicking, humming language Freya had used. All 3 dragons responded, their voices taking on similar patterns. "They tell me you saved them twice now," Nira said, switching to standard language. "Once from smugglers, once by giving them purpose." "They saved me more times than I can count," Daniel replied. "That is what family does." Nira knelt down, and the dragons approached her without fear. "We have been watching your situation. My government wants you to know that you have our support. Anyone who threatens you threatens them now." "I do not understand." "You bonded with our children, that makes you one of us, and we protect our own." News of the Draconid government's support changed everything overnight. Suddenly, the remaining conspirators could not move against Daniel without risking a diplomatic incident with one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Adult Draconids were living weapons, capable of destroying warships. Nobody wanted to anger an entire world of them. But the mercenaries were still at large, and they had been paid for a job they had not completed. Men like that did not give up easily. Daniel felt the danger before he saw it, a sudden spike of alarm that came not from his own mind but from somewhere else. The bond. Copper sent him a flash of warning. Silver showed him an image of shadows moving in the maintenance tunnels. Jade projected pure protective fury. The telepathic connection was growing stronger every day. "They are coming," Daniel said to Commander Trace, who had stationed himself permanently outside Daniel's office. "Multiple attackers using the service corridors." "How do you know?" Daniel pointed at the 3 dragons, who were all standing rigid, their attention focused on the walls. They can sense it. Trace immediately called for reinforcements. Within minutes, security teams were deployed throughout the administrative building, but Daniel knew it would not be enough. These mercenaries had evaded capture for weeks. They were professionals. The lights flickered. Jade was already at the door, her body low, wings spread. Copper and Silver took positions on either side of Daniel, forming a protective triangle. Explosions rocked the building, not close but getting closer. The mercenaries were fighting their way up floor by floor, overwhelming security through sheer violence. "We need to evacuate," Trey said. "Where? They have found me everywhere I go." "Then we make our stand here." More security officers poured into the office, setting up defensive positions. But Daniel could see the fear in their eyes. These were station security, trained for dealing with drunks and petty criminals, not hardened mercenaries with military-grade weapons. The dragons were afraid too. Daniel could feel it through the bond. But their fear was mixed with determination. They would not run, they would not hide. They would fight to protect him, even if it meant their deaths. "No," Daniel said suddenly. "I am done hiding. I am done letting other people get hurt because of me." "What are you suggesting?" Trace asked. "Put me somewhere public, somewhere with cameras, somewhere the whole station can see. Make them come to me in front of everyone." Trace stared at him. "That is suicide." "Or it is the only way this ends." Daniel looked at the three dragons. "They are not going to stop hunting me, so let them find me. Let everyone see what they are willing to do. Let everyone see who the real criminals are." 20 minutes later, Daniel stood in the central plaza, the same place he had uploaded his evidence. Thousands of people filled the space, drawn by emergency broadcasts announcing a public statement from the witness who had exposed galactic corruption. The three dragons stood with him, now the size of ponies, their scales gleaming under the plaza lights. They had grown so much, so fast. Their bond with him had accelerated their maturation beyond normal limits. Security forces surrounded the plaza, but they stayed back, giving Daniel clear space. Cameras from a dozen news agencies pointed at him. The entire galaxy was watching. Daniel spoke into the broadcast microphone. "My name is Daniel Reed. 3 weeks ago, I witnessed a crime. Nobody believed me because I am just a maintenance worker. But 3 beings did believe me. 3 dragons who I once helped, who chose to help me in return." The plaza was silent except for his voice. "The people who committed that crime have tried to kill me 11 times. They have killed security officers. They have destroyed property. They have corrupted the justice system, and they are still free because they have money and power and connections." Daniel looked directly into the nearest camera. "So I am making this simple. I am here. I am not hiding anymore, if you want to kill me, come do it in front of the whole galaxy. Show everyone what you really are." The challenge hung in the air. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the crowd screamed and scattered. Mercenaries dropped from the upper levels on rappelling lines, at least 20 of them, surrounding Daniel in seconds. Their weapons were drawn, pointed at him from every angle. The leader landed directly in front of Daniel, his armor marked with scorch marks from previous fights with the dragons. "You should have run," the mercenary said. "I am tired of running." "Then you are about to be dead." The dragons moved as one. Copper breathed fire in a wide arc, forcing mercenaries to dive for cover. Silver used her tail like a whip, knocking weapons from hands with precise strikes. Jade launched herself at the leader, her jaws closing on his weapon and crushing it like plastic. The fight erupted across the plaza. Security forces engaged the mercenaries from the perimeter. Citizens ran for cover. And in the center of it all, Daniel fought alongside 3 dragons who had become his family. But there were too many mercenaries. They had come prepared this time with weapons designed to hurt even draconids. Copper took a blast to her wing and fell, smoke rising from burned scales. Silver was hit in the side, crying out in pain. Jade kept fighting even as energy bolts scorched her armor. Daniel felt every wound they took as if it was his own. The bond transmitted their pain directly to him. He screamed and threw himself at the nearest mercenary, rage giving him strength he should not have possessed. Then the sky opened up. A Draconid ship appeared above the station, massive and terrible. Its weapons locked onto the plaza. Ambassador Nira's voice boomed through every speaker on the station. "You have attacked bonded Draconids. This is an act of war against our people. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The mercenaries froze. More ships appeared, not just Draconid vessels but Galactic Union cruisers responding to the crisis. Security forces moved in, surrounding the mercenaries completely. It was over. The leader of the mercenaries dropped his weapon and raised his hands. The others followed. They knew when they were beaten. Daniel collapsed to his knees beside the 3 injured dragons. They were hurt, bleeding, but alive. He could feel their pain ebbing as medics rushed to help them. Freya was suddenly there, carrying medical supplies designed for Draconids. "They will heal. Their species is incredibly resilient." "They took those hits for me," Daniel said, tears streaming down his face. "Because they love you, that is what bonded means." Freya began treating Copper's wing. "In their culture, there is no higher honor than protecting chosen family." Commander Trace approached, helping Daniel to his feet. "All mercenaries are in custody. We track their payment sources back to shell companies owned by the conspirators. More arrests are being made as we speak. It is truly over now." Daniel looked around the plaza. Cameras were still recording. The entire galaxy had watched 3 small dragons fight an army to protect 1 maintenance worker. They had seen loyalty that transcended species. They had seen courage that had nothing to do with size or strength. They had seen what humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy could be. Not advanced weapons or superior technology, but the simple act of showing kindness to those who needed it, of offering help without expecting payment, of forming bonds that lasted forever. The conspirators had wanted to silence one witness. Instead, they had created a symbol that would inspire millions. And it all started because Daniel Reed opened a crate and set 3 small dragons free. 6 months passed like a dream that Daniel kept expecting to wake from. The trial of the conspirators lasted 3 weeks and ended with guilty verdicts for everyone involved. Senator Brightwood, Ambassador Korvax, and Trade Minister Fallen received life sentences in maximum security facilities. The mercenaries who had hunted Daniel were sentenced to decades in prison. Justice, it turned out, was possible when the whole galaxy was watching. Daniel walked through Station Harmony with his 3 dragon companions flanking him. Copper, Silver, and Jade were now the size of horses, their scales gleaming with health, their wings powerful enough to carry them through the station's central atrium. People stopped to stare, but not with fear, with respect. Children waved at the dragons, who had become celebrities. Copper had developed a gentle personality despite her fierce protective instincts, often letting young ones pet her scales. Silver had proven remarkably intelligent, helping station engineers solve complex problems with her unique perspective. Jade remained the most protective always, positioning herself between Daniel and potential threats, but even she had learned to relax around friendly faces. Director Amara Wells met Daniel at the administrative building with an offer he had never expected. "We want you to head a new department," she said as they walked through corridors Daniel had once only entered to fix broken equipment. "Interspecies relations and witness protection. Your experience makes you uniquely qualified." "I fix air filters," Daniel said, though he smiled as he said it. "You exposed corruption that reached the highest levels of government. You survived 11 assassination attempts, and you formed a bond with a species that most people consider too dangerous to approach." Amara stopped at a large office with windows overlooking the central plaza. "This is yours if you want it." Daniel looked at the 3 dragons who were peering through the doorway with interest. He felt their emotions through the bond: excitement, pride, encouragement. "What would I actually do?" he asked. "Help other witnesses who are not believed, Protect people who speak truth to power. Build bridges between humans and species we do not understand yet. Amara smiled. Use your gift for seeing worth in beings that others overlook. Daniel accepted. The first week in his new position brought a message from a mining colony in the outer reach. A geologist named Ruth had witnessed environmental crimes, but local authorities refused to investigate because the company involved had political connections. She was being threatened. Nobody would help her. Daniel sent a response immediately. He offered protection, resources, and most importantly, belief. He knew exactly how she felt. Within days, Ruth was safely relocated to Station Harmony with evidence that would shut down the illegal operation. More messages came. A doctor who reported dangerous medical practices, an engineer who discovered safety violations, a teacher who exposed abuse, people who had seen wrong things and tried to do right things and been punished for it. Daniel helped them all. The dragons were part of every case. Their presence alone often deterred threats, but more than that, they had become symbols, proof that loyalty and courage came in unexpected forms, proof that the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. Freya visited often, bringing food for the dragons and news from the botanical research that kept her. Busy, she and Daniel had become close friends, bonded by their shared love for the three draconids who had changed so many lives. You received another invitation from the Draconid homeworld, Freya said one evening as they watched the dragons play in the central atrium, their massive forms moving with surprising grace. Ambassador Nera wants to know when you will visit. Soon, Daniel said. I want to see where they come from, understand their culture better. They want to honor you, the human who formed a bond without asking for anything in return. Daniel watched Copper chase Silver through the air while Jade supervised from a comfortable perch. They had healed completely from their wounds, growing stronger and more confident every day. The bond between them and Daniel had deepened until sometimes he could not tell where his thoughts ended and theirs began. I did not do anything special, Daniel said. I just opened a crate. You opened a crate when you could have walked away. You reported smugglers when you could have stayed silent. You trusted three small dragons when everyone told you they were dangerous. You kept telling the truth when powerful people wanted you to lie. Freya touched his arm gently. Do not dismiss your choices just because they felt simple. A young woman approached them nervously. She held a small child by the hand, and the child was staring at the dragons with wide eyes. Excuse me, the woman said. My daughter wanted to thank the dragons. They inspired her. The little girl stepped forward, holding a drawing. It showed three dragons and a person standing together. The words, "Family is who protects you," were written in crayon at the top. Jade descended from her perch and lowered her massive head to the child's level. The little girl reached out and gently touched Jade's snout. The dragon made a soft, rumbling sound that vibrated with warmth. Daniel felt tears in his eyes. This was why he had kept speaking when nobody listened. Why he had kept fighting when everyone told him to give up. Not for glory or recognition, but for moments like this. For children who learned that size did not matter, that courage came from within, that family was built through choice and loyalty. That night, Daniel stood in his apartment with the three dragons arranged around him. They barely fit anymore. Soon they would be too large for indoor spaces. He would need to find them proper. Housing, maybe in the habitat zone where other large species lived. But for now, they were together. Thank you, Daniel said quietly, for believing in me when nobody else did, for protecting me when I could not protect myself, for becoming my family when I needed one most. Copper rested her massive head on his shoulder, careful not to crush him. Silver curled her tail around his waist in a gentle embrace. Jade positioned herself at the door, still guarding, still watching, still devoted. Through the bond, Daniel felt their response. Not words, but emotions and concepts that needed no translation. You saved us first. We will never forget. We will never leave. This is forever. Daniel Reed had been nobody important. a maintenance worker who fixed broken things in forgotten corners of the station. But he had seen 3 small dragons in a crate and made a choice. A simple choice that anyone could have made. And that choice had changed everything. The conspirators who tried to silence him were in prison. The systems they had corrupted were being repaired. The witnesses they had threatened were now protected, and 3 dragons who should have died in a smuggler's hold had become legends. People across the galaxy told the story now. The maintenance worker and his 3 dragon bodyguards. The witness nobody believed who became the voice everyone needed. But Daniel knew the truth was simpler than the legend. He had shown kindness to beings who needed it. They had returned that kindness 1,000 times over. And together they had proven that family was not about blood or species or status. Family was about choosing to stand together when the world said you should stand apart. Family was about protecting each other when danger came. Family was about believing in each other when nobody else would. And sometimes, family was a maintenance worker and 3 small dragons who refused to let each other face the darkness alone. Outside his window, the stars turned in their ancient patterns. The galaxy spun on. And in one small apartment on Station Harmony, a man and 3 dragons who had saved each other slept peacefully, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new witnesses who needed help, new chances to prove that courage had nothing to do with size. The 3 small dragons had become bodyguards for a witness nobody believed. And in doing so, they had become so much more. They had become hope